So yes, everyone, in today's session, we will be understanding the directions on zones as per Vastu. Now, this is something that is commonly asked because this is your basic fundamental that you actually have to know to understand how to approach a site, even a basic preliminary method. So to break things down for you, I have made it today's structure such that it's as simple as possible for you and as simple for you to understand how to go about approaching zones and actually creating zones on a Vastu Chakra. So firstly, let us understand how many zones do we actually know about. Now, as per even from your schooling times, most of us are very familiar with four directions as per your cardinal directions. That is your north, your south, your west, and your east. Correct? Your north is located at your 0 degree, your east is located at your 90 degree, all right, and your south is located at 180 degree, and then this is at 270 your west, and finally again 360 at your north. Correct? So when you're looking at all of this, you'll be able to understand the angle created between each of them is 90 degrees that is there. Correct? Now, from this, how many more divisions can we make on the same cardinal direction? So firstly, let us consider north, east, south, west cardinal directions as your primary directions. Okay, this is commonly seen everywhere around the world, and these are the primary directions that we consider. Now, from primary directions, let us create our secondary directions. Our secondary directions is basically the area or the directional line that is drawn exactly between the north line and the east directional line. So let us consider this line over here. So this becomes your northeast, okay, directional line. And here two zones are being created over here and here. So again, since this is equally dividing the line of this particular cardinal axis or zone, this would become 45 degrees and this would also become 45 degrees roughly. Correct? So when you go about understanding this, your northeast directional line is splitting it into two halves, correct? Which is equal in nature. Similarly, when you have another directional line drawing that splits both the east directional line and the south directional line, you have your southeast sitting over here, correct? And likewise, when you cut across your south and west directional lines in the center, this becomes your southwest directional line. And again, when you cut across in the north and west zone, this becomes your northwest directional line. Correct? Yeah. So, yeah, this becomes your northwest directional line. Now, these become your secondary lines. So, basically, what happens is from your primary directions, you come into making it as your secondary directions. Like I said, you have a secondary northeast line, a secondary directional southeast line, a secondary directional southwest line, and a secondary directional northwest line. Correct? Now let us consider this again. From your primary and secondary lines, let us again make an other angle, that is your tertiary lines. Okay. Again, coming back to the same knowledge, let us take your north directional line and your northeast directional line. So this is your primary, one of your primary directional lines, and this is one of your secondary direction lines. Let us cut this in half. Okay. Now, while naming a tertiary line, okay, a directional line, we first call it with its primary name, and then its secondary name. So this particular directional line, when cut in between, becomes north, northeast. So this becomes your north, northeast directional line. Correct? Similarly, when we start making, similar direction lines like this, cutting all of this, that is one primary and one secondary lines, directional lines, you get multiple other, or what you say, lines being created and zones being created between them. So when we see on a detailed level, the zones that we'll be creating is this. That is your north, northeast, northeast, east to northeast, east, east southeast, 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 south, southwest, southwest, west southwest, west, west northwest, northwest, and northwest. Now, let me again give you a quick recap of what we covered. North, east, south, and west are your primary cardinal directional lines. Okay, your northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest are your secondary directional cardinal lines. Then your north, northeast, east, southeast, east, south, south, southeast, south, southwest, west, southwest, west, northwest, and north, northwest become your tertiary directional lines. If you have followed me till here, you have been able to understand how we move from the side, primary directional lines to secondary directional lines to tertiary directional lines. So this is regarding the lines that we have come. Now let us understand how to figure out the zone that is encompassing in the area. Now, when we, go into any site and we take up, you know, like if you want to see any north direction of any plot, for example, what we do, we go on Google Earth Pro or we go on Google Maps, we identify where the north is lying. When it indicates the north on these, this basically talks about the north directional line that is there. So if you have, let me just give you an example. If there's a representation of north like this, it means this is the directional line where at which the angle at which it's there, it is at 0 degrees. Correct? So that is why I'm saying when you consider, uh, you know, when you actually consider looking into all of this, you will be able to understand that this north direction line is your 0 degree. Again, coming into your primary coordinates. East is your 90 degree. 180-degree directional line, 270-degree directional line. Now let us first understand where is the north zone actually falling in. Now, I want to ask you guys a question. When we took the northeastern zone, let us take this now, the northeast, that is a secondary directional line. You made one zone over here and another zone was made over here, correct? Coming back again, when we again split the same lines into understanding, we again made. So again, this is your north directional line. This is your, east directional line. This is your northeast directional line. Now we created a tertiary line. That is your north northeast and east northeast. So you can see individually there is one zone, second zone, third zone, and fourth zone created over here. Equally, you will have multiple other zones created over here. But one thing that we didn't understand clearly is that when we started off understanding the directions, we clearly mentioned that this is the north directional line of the cardinal axis. This is the east directional line of the coordinate axis. So when we consider in that level, we must understand that when we take a directional line, the directional line falls in the center of a zone. So this zonal consideration is not true. While actually considering a directional zone, okay, what we take into consideration is your north or any directional axis that you take has to be in the center of the zone. So, as we learned that overall in a 360-degree circle, we have created 16 individual directional lines as of now. Okay. So, when we say basic maths, 360 divided by 12 is 22.5. So, we have understood each zone will be 22.5 degrees. But when we understood just now a while back that the north or any directional line must be in the center of the zone, what would happen is we would not be considering 22.5 like this, but rather we would be considering half of 22.5 before the north directional line, and I'm sorry, we will be considering 11.25 before the north directional line, similarly 11.25 after the north directional line. So my actual north zone would be this particular zone. uh Actually it's, yeah, so this would become my north directional zone. So this is actually how you consider having a direction in your, what you say, directional cardinal axis, and how to go about creating your zones in this is how we learned about until now. Okay. So if you have followed me until now, the same thing I've just given it in a more detailed manner. Now, like you can see when we talked about the northeast zone, now just now we understood the north zone, correct? So the north zone has to be basically where the cardinal axis is 0 degree. The north directional line must be in the center of the zone. So 11.25 comes here, 11.25 comes here. So this much is your my first zone. I'm just putting it like this. A little here and there it might happen because it's a freehand drawing. Okay, so this becomes my north zone. Now after the north zone, we learned another zone that comes after this, that is the north northeast zone. So again from here you will consider the 22.5 overall degree, and this becomes your north northeast zone. And like you can see, the directional line of the north northeast zone is exactly in the center of it. So this becomes your second zone. Similarly, after north northeast you have your northeast zone. Again let us consider 22.5 degrees from here, and this becomes your, what you say, third zone. So here again your northeast directional line will be sitting in the center of it, and hence this becomes your third zone. Similarly, overall in this 360-degree circle, you will be able to create a total of 16 zones. And the zones are named after the same directional lines. That is your north zone, north northeast zone, northeast zone, east northeast zone, east zone, east southeast zone, east southeast zone, south southeast zone, south zone, south southwest zone, southwest, west north, west southwest, west, west northwest, northwest, and north northwest. Now, when you learn in detail as we go in the further modules, you will be able to understand that each of these zones have their own attributes and elements that they're associated with. Okay, just to give you a quick glance of what each of them are, we'll understand why they're associated with each of this in the future classes or sessions. But for today, I'll just give you a very quick understanding of what each of the attributes of each zones are associated with. Okay, so since you have come with me till here, let me just tell you how exactly the 16 zones are divided and what attributes they are associated with. So starting from here, let us start with the north zone because that is the first thing we started. The directional line, like I said, is exactly at the center where you will be having 11.25 here, 11.25 here, overall it being a 22.5 degree zone falling in the top part. So the north zone as per Vastu is associated with money opportunities. All right. From there, you have the next 22.5 degrees taken, which is the north-northeast zone. This zone deals with the health and immunity of the space. Next 22.5 degrees from there taken makes the northeastern zone. This zone deals with mental clarity and peace of mind. From that again we take another 22.5 degrees. This becomes the east northeast zone, and this zonal attribute relates to recreation, fun, vacations, and all of those aspects. Again from here we'll take the next 22.5 degrees, which becomes the east zone. This completely deals with social associations and interactions. Again from the east zone, let's take another 22.5 degrees. This becomes the east southeast. This deals with completely anxiety and churning aspect of it, and this is the attribute related to this zone. From here we go to the southeast zone. This deals with the complete fire element. So fire, clash, liquidity, anything related to the planet Venus, woman of the house, all are related to the southeast zone. From here, another 22.5 degrees creates the south southeast. This completely depends on power and confidence attribute. From there, in next 22.5 is your south degree, and this degree is, this zone is associated with your fame, relaxation, and all of those things. From here again, the next 22.5 degrees creates your south southwest that completely deals with wastage and expenditures. From there, your next 22.5 degrees creates your southwest zone, a zone that basically deals with relationships, skills, etc. Next 22.5 degrees is west southwest, dealing with education and savings. From that, the next 22.5 degrees deals with west zone that deals with gains, profits, etc. This is also a zone that is associated with Lord Shani. From here, you have the next zone, which is again 22.5 degrees, which is west northwest. This zone completely deals with depression and low moods, and all of those psychological aspects of it. From here, and next 22.5 degrees deals with support and banking systems. Again, from that, the next 22.5 degrees deals with sex and attraction. And like this, we have covered 16 degrees in 16 zones in total.